90% of patient contacts are seen by GPs in the primary care team. And in the UK, that's well over 1 million appointments a day. So by far the biggest amount of work in terms of patient-facing work is in primary care. The aim of the NIHR and the CRN is to get everyone who's patient-facing, whether it's a GP, a nurse, a dietitian, a physio, a social prescriber, involved in research and really entwining the research as part of the sort of culture every time you see a patient. The great thing about primary and community care is it covers a whole range of different specialties. So you have many studies with mental health, dermatology, diabetes, basically the whole spectrum of medical problems.
One of the commercial studies we got involved, we were approached for the first time, was a pneumonia vaccination trial. We not only recruited the patients from within our practice, but we also were involved in recruiting patients from outside the practice because we are falling short of the numbers. We got enough patients to participate in the trial. We were involved in right from the consenting the patient to actually giving the injections, monitoring the adverse reaction, reporting any adverse reactions to the appropriate authorities within the research studies. And this really helped us in understanding how the commercial aspect and the commercial studies work. We also got involved in another clinical trial called prostagram trial, where we were actually recruiting patients to diagnose prostate cancer at an early stage. And that gave us an idea into how patients can be benefited in terms of the new investigations which can be offered to them. After that trial, MRI scan of the prostate has become a norm now in NHS. The third trial is iHealth trial, where we have been recruiting patients with high risk factors for cardiovascular disease and diabetes. And they have had comprehensive examination, advice regarding diet and exercise. So these were the three big trials which we have been involved, and there are a few more coming up in future.
The relationship between GPs and the patients is a bit different to secondary care. People tend to know their GPs better. You build that trusting relationship, and the trust is hugely important because if your GP, who you know and you trust, says, oh, it's a good idea to get involved in this study, then people are much more likely to do it. In terms of the Trials Alliance, what's really exciting is that primary and secondary care are now really working together. So primary care are doing trials that they're comfortable with, that you don't necessarily need secondary care input. But there are groups of trials where you do really need secondary care backup. So for instance, GP surgeries can be a bit nervous about using experimental medications that haven't been trialled before, just in case there's like an allergic reaction or something like that. So having the backup of secondary care is really important. And what's been developed is what's called a hybrid model, where primary and secondary care work together using CRF facilities based at a hospital such as Imperial or Chelsea and Westminster or Northwick Park. Primary care can refer people there. They can work together with secondary care clinicians in some trials that are maybe a bit more complicated that need the secondary care backup. Now it's a really exciting time. These things are just happening at the moment, and a real alliance is happening between secondary care and primary and community care in terms of research.